Hello everybody, I hope everyone's having a good day. Well, we're going to continue the series that I've been doing, 43 players in 43 days. I've been going through all the Essendon players on the list going into 2026, what our expectations are of them, where I think they're going to fit into the team, whether I think they're going to improve, whether I think they're going to decline, whether I think they're going to be at around the same level that they were. We've done a few players so far, and it's time to do another one. Now, I haven't been doing these in any particular order. I thought it would be more interesting that way if it was random.
We're not interested at all.
Not sure if that's what you guys like, but that's how I've decided to do it. So we're going to have a look at the next player on the list, and the next player is going to be Xavier Duursma. So Xavier Duursma is 25 years old, so he's right in the peak of his career, or entering the peak of his career. He's played 110 games of football. He was traded to us at the end of the 2023 season for Brandon Zerk-Thatcher. So he's played with us for 2 years, and he's been a pretty consistent player for 2 years without being spectacular. I've been looking at these players and really having a look at whether the investment that we made for them has been worth the output that they've given us. And normally that's pretty easy to look at when you look at the draft pick. If a player was picked at a certain pick in the draft, you sort of have an expectation of what that player would be expected to deliver. A bit harder to gauge here because we swapped him for Brandon Zerk-Thatcher. There was no draft pick involved. So what's Zerk-Thatcher worth? Probably the equivalent of a second-round pick or something, a mid-second-round pick, perhaps at his age, something like that. So that's probably what we've given up to acquire Duursma. And I think over the 2 years he's been with us, averaging around 20, just under 20 disposals a game, I think he's probably given more than what our investment has been worth. And if every player does that, then you'll be a pretty good team. Now, you can't say that for every player on the list, but certainly I think what we gave up for him wasn't huge. I mean, Zerk-Thatcher might go on and have a pretty good career, but I think Duursma has been a pretty solid player for us. He's 25, entering his prime. He does show leadership as well. I think a lot of the younger players, the 15 rookies on the list, would have looked up to him a little bit as a constant in the team, given that he was in the team basically every week, playing 22 of the club's 23 games. He would have been able to help guide some of the emerging talents, and he would be looking himself to continue on that reasonable form he showed this year into next year. So some of the numbers that he put up, Xavier Duursma, he was officially the club's 19th best player, according to Champion Data. Look, you can quibble with those numbers. I'm just saying what the numbers say. Sometimes the numbers can be a little bit misleading because they might give more weight to midfielders and other players, and some defenders don't, who might just do their job and play a lockdown role, don't necessarily get the statistical benefits of that. But the numbers say he was the club's 19th best player, which means he's safely in the best 23. If you assume that there's 2 or 3 injuries every week, then he's in the best 23 by a clear 5 or 6 players. So he's certainly in there. He does have some weaknesses. I think his kicking, he does tend to get under his kicks a little bit. I think his kicks do tend to be a little bit sort of loopy. Let me know in the comments what you think. If there's anything I missed, or if there's anything that you like about the player, or any weaknesses that you think I haven't touched on, or anything like that, or anything that you think they can add to the team for next year in terms of where they should play, let me know in the comments. It's always better if we work together to come up with some thoughts rather than, my opinion is just one of many. But I try to, give my thoughts, and hopefully you guys like to hear that. So one thing about Duursma is that he's a pretty good wingman, and he'll have another wingman playing with him next year in Fiorini. And I think the wing was a little bit of a problem for us last year. He was pretty good himself, but the other wing, we had Sardel Hooley playing there sometimes when he was in the team. He often wasn't. We had Lawal playing there nearly every week for about, I think he was named on the wing virtually every game he played, and Lawal's has now been delisted. So next year we're going to have 2 genuine wingmen on each side of the ground. We're going to have Duursma on one side of the ground, and we are going to have Fiorini on the other. It does beg the question, though, as to whether Duursma can add anything from any other positions. He does have pretty good run. He's got reasonable two-way running, and he does look like he has a pretty good tank, as you need to if you're a wingman. But with his speed and his sort of disposal, you kind of wonder whether he would be okay off a half-back as well. I don't know whether that's... I mean, as a wing, you're sometimes pushing back and playing there a little bit anyway. But I kind of think he'd be suited to that position a little bit. Maybe his run and dash is a little bit more suited to the wing. I'm not saying that you play 100% in one area or 100% in the other. I'm very much a horses for courses type of person. I think you sort of play where you need it to. But certainly, I think sort of wing or even pushing up off half back would be a good thing for him to do. What we really want from Duursma is just the same level of consistency. I wouldn't think that at his age, at 25, we're going to see much improvement in him. The key ages for a player are probably between 23 and 28. He's right smack bang in the middle of that. And I think the player that he is now is just the player that he's going to be. He's not going to be any better than what he is now. So he's a bottom, like a best 23 player, but the bottom half of the best 23. So he's safely in the team, but he won't be any better than that. So my expectations of him next year would be that he would play at about the same level. I don't think he's going to get any better. You know, it would be interesting if somehow, and we don't know what's going to happen with the draft in terms of swapping picks or moving up to pick one. It would be interesting if one or both of the other Duursma boys were at the club. You think it can only be an advantage for Xavier to have his brothers or brothers there at the club. It has to help in terms of familiarity and things like that. Whether that happens, I think it would be unlikely. I don't think West Coast are going to, look, we've discussed the draft in detail. I can't really go into it. I'm not going to go into it much more now. But it is a little variable there that I think could enhance his performance. Certainly if you've got family members and people that you're familiar with at your club, it can only really help. So some questions I've got with Duursma as to what I think his expectations are and the key questions surrounding him going into 2026. Can he sustain his resurgent form to continue as Essendon's wingman in 2026, our best wingman, or will his past inconsistencies resurface? And that is something. He has been kind of inconsistent at times. It hasn't really threatened to derail him or anything like that, but I'd like to see some, consistent, excellent performances back to back, which we often don't get. He's contracted until 2027, so how will his experience help mentor Essendon's younger players and help the side? And lastly, is the wing the optimal position to harness his speed and his strengths, or should Essendon explore maybe half-back rotations and maybe add some defensive versatility to him for 2026? Let me know in the comments what you think as to where you think Duursma should play. Should we just continue to play him on the wing, or are there some other things that we can explore? So what do you think of Xavier Duursma? What do you think of his role in the team? Do you think he gives a lot to Essendon? Do you think he can be an asset? Do you think he can improve next year, or will he just hold his ground? I think he'll hold his ground, and pretty much whatever the player is now is the player he's going to continue to be. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great day. And as always, go Bombers.